everybody. Thanks for clicking on the video. Interview number 2 lined up here, and I've got a really, really nice woman on the line. Her name is Lynn. She lives in West Central Pennsylvania, and you guys who listen to my videos, sometimes you'll hear my dogs in the background clicking around in my office, and Lynn's got a dog. She's got a big St. Bernard named Archie, so if y'all hear him barking in the background, most people say they kind of like it. It makes it sound real. They like dogs. Well, Lynn's got a big old St. Bernard, and it has snowed up in Pennsylvania, and he's raring to get out. But I want to introduce you to Lynn. She's lovely. She's great. She's got some great stories that I want you guys to hear, and I think you're going to find it very interesting. Lynn, how are you?
I am great, Cam. How are you?
I'm doing good. Lynn and I have been talking for probably about 30 minutes before this, and I just love talking to her. It's like her and I just click, bump, 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 bump. We're able to talk, and she's fascinating. She's got every story she tells me just blows me away. She's got experience from when she was a little girl with several things, and it stretches from, I would say, the UFO aspect, and she's got experience with cryptids, namely Bigfoot. If we can get to it in this interview, she has some dealings with the, would you call that the paranormal, Lynn?
I guess the paranormal. Don't know what it was that was in this house.
Something in the spiritual realm, but we're going to start with some stuff that I find interesting, and I hope you guys do. So, Lynn, I've already told everybody you're in West Central Pennsylvania, and I've heard the story how you got there, and we're not going to get into that necessarily, but you have or had a great relationship with your father. Can you talk about that a little bit?
No, I was his 4th daughter, and I was his baby. The year my mother became pregnant with me, she told him she was pregnant, and he laughed and said, yes, we only did that once this month. When I was born, I looked just like him, to the point that the nurse walked over to me in the nursery, picked me up, and handed me to him. She never even asked who he was. He and I worked together for 15 years. We had an insurance agency, and he and I worked together in that agency for 15 years. So we spent a lot of time when it was just him and me in the office talking about different things. And one of the things that we most often talked about, Cam, was Bigfoot. He firmly believed that Bigfoot came here by UFO. He would go back to December of 1965 when there was a crash landing of a UFO in a small town in central Pennsylvania called Kecksburg. And this is a documented incident. You can look it up on the internet. He always said that when the call originally came in and he traveled from our hometown to Kecksburg, he believed that he was going to the site of a plane crash. The UFO, when it crashed, was sighted across the United States and Canada. There were like 23 or 25 reports by airplane pilots. It created sonic booms. It made a show coming down, and it came down outside Kecksburg, which is just close to Pittsburgh. And he said when he arrived there, he got there in time to see them flatbedding this thing that looked like an acorn away from the crash site. They were basically told by state police that it was a meteor, and they were told to go home. Somehow or another, someone contacted him the next day. He was never quite sure how that happened, and he was asked to return to Kecksburg. He returned to Kecksburg. He met with some individuals, and they had a talk about what he should and should not discuss with other people. A few days later, I'm guessing, I don't know, I was 3 just going on 4 when all this happened. I remember getting called away from playing downstairs to come into the living room of my parents' home, where I found this man sitting in my father's chair. The man was dressed in black. He had a white shirt, black tie, black shoes. I believe he even had a black trench coat, and I was introduced to him. I didn't like him. I thought he was creepy and sneaky, and I didn't like that he was in my daddy's chair. I was just introduced and left. And I remember within a couple days of that, my parents stopped discussing what happened in Kecksburg because they would talk back and forth about it. They would speculate, was it a UFO? Maybe it really wasn't. Maybe it really was a meteor that looked like an acorn with hieroglyphs on the bottom. But they stopped all speculation about that UFO. Daddy would talk about it, but he wouldn't get real specific about it. He said that it was larger, looked like an acorn, had hieroglyphics on the bottom. It had lights that circled around through the hieroglyphs. He figured that that was something that they used to communicate.
But back to your dad now. He saw this event. You're pretty sure the proverbial men in black showed up, and you didn't like the guy. But your father was convinced what this was, right?
He was thoroughly convinced that this was a UFO. He was thoroughly convinced that Bigfoot was on it or had come in on it. He had a good friend. It was actually his best friend, and there was a large wooded area between our house and his friend's house. He told me at one point that he remembered several times where his friend told him that they could not sleep with as much UFO traffic was going in and out of this particular section of this wooded area, and that it would be almost constant all night, in and out. I don't know where Dad got the idea that Bigfoot was piloting the UFOs, but he was adamant about it. I do know there is someone local who is a Bigfoot expert who also believes this, and I do know that my father knew him. So that may be where the idea came from. I asked him if he saw anything that ever confirmed that when he was at Kecksburg. He said no. It was just a belief that he had. And he was positive of it. I remember in his Rolodex when I started working with him in the insurance agency, which was the year I graduated from high school. And we moved the agency out of the house. And I started working with him. And he had, I remember, 2 cards in his Rolodex. One was for Bigfoot, Bigfoot something of Pennsylvania, and the other was UFO Westmoreland County.
You know what's funny is when I first started kind of delving into this, reading about Bigfoot, and, of course, everybody goes to YouTube and listens to interviews like this. And YouTube and the internet is the big research, the big information source for this creature. I rarely ever heard anything about UFOs being connected with Bigfoot. For the longest time, for the last 3 years, you just don't. I don't know. There's very little. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not digging deep enough. But the last month or so, everybody is talking about this. And I don't know what it is. I watched, I don't know if you're familiar with Bigfoot Odyssey. They do, right now they're doing a nightly show with 2 or 3 people, and they're having different guests on. It's a great show. And they had Ron Moorhead. I'm not real familiar with him, but he was talking about that. I heard it somewhere else just this week. I can't remember what it is, but it's really got me thinking. Now, when your dad explained all this to you, what do you think about it? You believe him? Do you just kind of follow along with his line of thinking, or do you have?
Well, I don't actually remember what I thought back then. I probably was like 10 or 12 years old back in the 70s. It was in the early 70s when Mom and I were coming home from my piano lessons one night. We were following the road, and as we came around the bend to go home, right over the wooded area between him and his friend's house, there was an acorn-shaped object right over the top of the tree, and it was bobbing up and down, going in circles. It had a pattern of sort of hieroglyphics at the bottom. They were lit, and there were lights flashing around this hieroglyph as it was spinning in the air. And that was, I believe, the summer of 72. Well, for the next 2 years immediately following that, Pennsylvania, specifically that area of Pennsylvania, became well known for Bigfoot sightings.
Right.
In fact, the area where I live now is ranked rather high in Pennsylvania as for an area of Bigfoot sightings. To Dad, at the time, it confirmed his thought. all of the different Bigfoot sightings that were going were related to the UFO. There is a documentary about this also. It's called Invasion of Chestnut Ridge. And it talks about the things that happened back in the 70s that were going on around the time of all these UFO sightings. And the 70s, the early 70s, would be the time that Daddy referenced about the UFOs coming in and out of the wooded area and keeping George and his family awake.
So he pretty much just put two and two together. It's funny to me because a UFO, you assume it comes from outer space. If you ever hear that term UFO, you immediately think of aliens. And then when you think of aliens, you think of these big-eyed, the typical image of an alien with the skinny body and the big eye. But what if they're actually, I sound crazy saying this, but these big hairy creatures, that just blows me away. But I mean, wouldn't that be a shock? I don't know what I'm talking about, but do you know what I'm saying? Wouldn't that be a shock that the aliens actually are Bigfoot?
I don't know if I'd be shocked or just finally go,
Well, I mean, you're used to the idea, but there's so many schools of thought on this, and it's all speculation because we don't know. But a lot of people, I would say most people, think it's just a flesh and blood animal. But like on the interview I heard this week with a Bigfoot Odyssey with Ron Moorhead, he's like, well, how do you explain all this stuff? All these contradictory reports, all the different displays of behavior, all the cloaking and, the absence of good, credible film and photographs and the different sounds and things like that. He's like, how do you explain that? He was talking about quantum physics. I don't know. I'm not that smart, but there's something about that kind of clicks with me. And I would love to have talked to your dad.
Oh, he was fascinating when it came to stuff like this. And, people can write it off as that he was a flake.
Of course.
But to give you a little bit of his history, he came from the Highlands of Scotland. He made his way to the United States after he did his time in World War II.
Okay.
He served in Her Majesty's Navy. He was a trained engineer. Without giving it away, he worked on world-renowned subways. He worked on a monorail that is known around the world. He worked on a transit system that operates in one of the largest cities in California. He was not a stupid man. He probably would have continued with that company if it had not been for the fact that my mother got pregnant with me, and he decided that he wanted to be a father full-time. Mom went to work in a drafting firm. There's another person who thoroughly believed everything he said about UFOs and Bigfoot, who was a draft. They worked at a company out of Pittsburgh together. That was where they met. She believed it too. So she was another not stupid person. She went to work full time as a draftsman so he could stay home and be a dad with us when we came home from school. And then the year I graduated from high school, we moved it out of the house. He wasn't a flake. He was a very intelligent man. He was also a pillar in the church. He was a deacon and then an elder. He made 2 trips to the Holy Land. I remember one time we had a long conversation about how he put all of this together with his faith. And it wasn't an easy journey for him because, of course, you're not supposed to believe these things are possible, but he did. I'm sure there's a lot that's lost to time, things that I just don't remember anymore, parts of conversation that we had. Did he ever find a footprint? I don't think so.
But he saw UFOs. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Have you seen the same things he has seen regarding UFOs?
But there was that one we saw together.
Right.
The one that I was coming home, the night I was coming home from piano.
And your mom stopped the car and...
Yeah, she actually saw it first. But then I was 10 and was doing whatever 10-year-olds do when mom's driving. But there were other incidents. There were different incidents of him seeing UFOs. He believed, and I believe you were the person who said this, that once you're touched by these things, they continue to return to you. He had lost time. And you can't talk about what you did when you lose an hour or two when you simply don't remember what happened. He and Mom had an incident of lost time together.
Oh, wow. So he's experienced all the classic symptoms that are man, I'm so jealous. Anyway, so and I was just going to interject. I'm in the engineering construction industry, and I want to say this before I forget it, but some of the most closed-minded people regarding things that we're talking about here tonight are scientists who you would think would be open to things that are outside of what we can see in everyday life. Engineers, guys, like, I'm not an engineer, but I work in that field, and they are very smart men. It's a hard school to get through in the first place. And then after that, it's harder to get a PE license than it is to become a doctor. I'm telling you, it's harder. I mean, these guys have to work under the supervision of other PEs for years before they can even take the test. And it's harder. But a lot of the guys that I've worked with through the years are into exactly what we're talking about now. They are so open to these things. And so your father sounds just like some of the guys I've worked with through the years. Just very interesting people. Your father, and so he's sharing this information with you and talking about it. And your father passed away in the 80s, is that right?
Yeah.
Since then, is there any more activity in that area regarding UFOs?
Yeah.
So it continues till today, or is it less or more? Or I know that one incident you're talking about was almost a big news story, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But do you think it's kind of trickled off, or is it still happening? Kind of tell us about that.
It still happens. They still get reports of UFOs. They get reports of Bigfoot. There's a lot of communities around here that are really high with Bigfoot reporting. I've spoken to people who have told me that they have them prowling their wood line. Wood line? Yeah. Tree line, sorry.
Yeah, I got you.
And then to move on to my own experience with the one that we have that lives in the woods behind our house. When we moved here, I don't believe either of us had any idea what was going on. Like, there were classic signs. There's no ground animals. We have no chipmunks, squirrels, raccoons, none of that. It's very quiet. It's very quiet at times, not all the time.
So are you in a suburban area, or are you in a rural area?
Rural.
Okay.
I have trouble with that word too.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
So no chipmunks, no small wildlife.
No small wildlife. Dogs that bark a lot, but no small wildlife.
Oh, I'd like to give Archie a big old scratch on his head right now. He's a good boy.
He is a good boy. He just wants to go outside and play in the snow. Yeah, he just perked his ears up at me. And the problem is it's 11 degrees out there. I don't want frozen dog paws.
Do you want to take a break and take him out?
Let him out because yeah, there he goes.
He's barking at Bigfoot.
He could be, because he went right to the fence line.
Oh,
Hold on 1 second.
We've talked about the UFO stuff and your dad, which is fascinating. And I love the story of you and your dad. I have a daughter, and she's our youngest. She's the baby. So I know exactly how he felt about you. So I really am glad you talked about that. And I know you didn't go very deep into it, but let's move on to the Bigfoot that you have living in your area that you all call the old man. Can you kind of, you were about to start talking about how you became aware of this. Can you go on with that?
Sure. I was working in retail when we first moved here. I came home. We moved into this house right before Thanksgiving. I had gotten a job in retail. So going straight into the Christmas season, my first year with this employer, I was working some late hours. I am a fiend on Christmas decorations. Yes, if you could see this place now, I have 6 Christmas trees.
Oh.
The entire fence line is done. The trees out front are done. There's a sign along the road that says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year that we put together out of styrofoam cups and red plastic balls with white lights behind them. We're just crazy. But when we first moved, now we get away with the decorations. Now we're allowed to have the decorations. When we first moved in here, we weren't. I would be coming home from work, and I would find the lights out. Not in the house, but the ones outside. because I put everything in the house on timers, and my husband knows, do not touch her timers. Do not touch her trees. Do not touch her timers. Leave them all alone. She'll take them down when she's ready. In fact, as we're talking now, I'm sitting surrounded by everything that's on timers. Anyway, I came home, and all of the yard lights were out. I was like, huh? So I come in the house, and I look at my husband, and I said, why did you turn the yard lights out? I didn't do that. Well, how did that happen? I don't know. Maybe it was a dog going up and down the steps. At that time, we had a Great Dane. Maybe it was a dog going up and down the steps. I didn't do it. So the next day, I go outside. I'm looking around and discovered that all of the Christmas lights had been unplugged from the main plug. Somehow or another, the main plug had gotten pulled, which doesn't sound all that impossible, right? Except that the main plug was at the top of the fence line and cable tied in place. So something had detached the plug from the receptacle on the porch, and the entire yard had been turned on. And I kind of scratched my head and went, well, how would that happen? Plugged it back in, come home from work the next night, everything's off. I'm like, yeah, okay, It's probably some sort of thing with the dog running up and down the steps from the deck that's causing this to happen, because with the fenced yard, it could easily happen, I guess. It was right there. So I decided to move it. I moved the plug off the fence line, reattached it to two timers that I put at the corner of the deck. At that point, everything was ran from the deck instead of from the fence line, but the lights were still getting turned off. And there was no explanation from the husband how this was happening. I finally went, forget it. I'm done. I'm not playing with these lights all winter. This is not happening. So I just turned them off and let them off, and then after Christmas took everything down and put it in the barn. Still had no idea what was going on. There were different little things I think I just wasn't paying attention to. Like stones would end up on the steps coming into the back of the house, or it would be like, how did that get there? And I really wouldn't think anything of it. One night in the spring, if it's like March or April, I was coming home from work. It was right around Easter. I turned into the driveway, and when I described what happened, everybody laughed. But it wasn't that funny at the time. Our driveway it's a quarter mile long, and you go back about 2/10, and then you go up a hill. Well, up and going back the 2/10 of a mile, and I start to go up the hill when all hell broke loose, cats everywhere. And at this point, everyone's laughing. Did she just say cats? Yes, I just said cats. Feral cats from in the woods, running everywhere. 15 of them. A cavalcade of cats coming down the driveway.
Good grief.
I had no idea we had that many cats living in these woods. None. I had never seen them. But these cats were running, and I had to stop to keep from hitting one or more of them. And I'm sitting there going, what in the world? And the cats just ran across the driveway, across the road, and up the hill on the other side. And I'm sitting there dumbfounded. Number one, had no idea that the cats were in the woods. Number two, had no idea why in the world this just happened. So I start to go up the driveway, and as I'm going up the driveway, I see a length of a leg with reddish-brown hair on it from about the knee to the foot. And it was a foot. And I saw it disappear into the woods.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, what was wrong with that bear's leg? What was wrong with that bear's leg? That didn't look right. And then I said, bear? There's a bear in my driveway. Oh, my God. What about the dog? Is my husband okay? So I pull into the garage, get out, come in the house, and my husband was sitting at the kitchen table, and he was pale. And I looked at him, and I'm like, what's wrong? He goes, I have no idea what is in those woods. But let me tell you, that thing has a vocal range that you would not believe. I have heard everything from what sounds like a gorilla to what could be called yodeling to chatter to whistling all night long. It's been going on constantly. And I looked at him and I said, really? And he goes, no, I'm kidding. And I stood there and I looked at him and I'm like, no, honey, what would make all that kind of noise? He said, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, I'm going out. I'm not going out there now, but I'm going out there first thing tomorrow. I'm going to take a gun and I'm going to find out what was making that noise. And I proceeded to tell him about the cat. And he said, we don't have any cats in these woods. I said, we don't now because they all just moved across the road. Well, yeah, there were 15 to 20 cats that came down the driveway like they were being chased by Satan. And I told him what I saw, and he looked at me and he goes, well, you go talk to the neighbor tomorrow. I'm going to go into the woods, and I'm going to try to find out what this was. Okay. So the next day, I went to talk to the neighbor. Let's call her Celine. I went to talk to Celine. I walked into Celine's house. I said, Celine, I need to talk to you about what's going on in the woods. And she looked at me, and she went, oh, have you seen it?
Oh, no, really?
And I said, have I seen what? And she started into this story that made me think at first, I was like, I've lost my mind. I've lost my mind. Somehow, I've lost my mind. Because she started talking about this creature that everyone around here, well, not everyone around here, calls the old man, the people that live in our neighborhood. And we have 5 houses and a population of about 15 people back here. We actually have more dogs than humans in our neighborhood. Anyway, we do. The dogs go out and gossip. Sorry, dog number 3 went outside.
It's okay.
And she's going to be 14 in a month. Anyway, so she starts talking about this creature called the old man and how he's been here for as long as anybody can remember. And her in-laws talked about him being here and blah, 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 blah. He's a Bigfoot. Really? I was like, really? Yes. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to her talk about him and the different things that he does. And she says, she apologizes to me for not telling me sooner. I'm like, okay. I remember feeling like shock at this because like you buy a house in a neighborhood and you don't expect to have a Bigfoot living in your backyard.
Right.
But this area really isn't a neighborhood. This is a very rural area. It's very wooded. My nearest neighbor is a quarter mile away. Well, that's if I go by driveway. If I run through the woods, it's not as far. But there's a couple houses back here, and every one of them is occupied, and everyone's been here for a while except for us, and we've been here 10 years. Everyone's been here, else has been here much longer. With the exception of one person, we feed him. You asked me the other day, is he the only one? I think so. I've never seen evidence of another one. But then I've never really, really, truly seen him. I see shadows. I see footprints. I see things that he leaves around. I feed him. The food disappears. I can tell when he's been here. I came home from work the other day, and Archie had ripped down the draperies in the kitchen, which to me was a sure sign he was probably as close as the backyard. The drapes were on the floor in the kitchen. The rod was beyond repair. The drapes were in shreds.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Well, he had come into the backyard because I had thrown carrots the day before. I had thrown a couple of bunches of carrots out into the backyard for him. I think one didn't make it over the fence. He usually prefers not to come on the inside of the fence line. I think in the 10 years that we've been here, I've only ever seen his footprints on the inside of the fence line 2 or 3 times.
Right.
And evidence that he's been on the inside of the fence line is rare, but he'll do it. He mostly respects our property. He mostly stays on the other side of the fence line, but he probably had to come in to get the carrots because I think one of the bunches of carrots did not make it over the fence.
Now, but you said you haven't seen him, but you saw his leg. I mean, is there any doubt?
I saw his leg.
Is there any doubt looking back on that now that was not a bear?
Oh, that was not a bear. When I walked into Celine's kitchen that following morning and I was talking to her about what was going on, I could tell by the look on her face.
Yeah.
You know, she came to tell me that the people that live in these houses around here, they all knew he was there and that he's been there. Like I said, with the exception of one person, everyone feeds him.
I want to ask, do you think he's a solitary male, like an older male, or is he a young, obviously not a bachelor? But with what we talked about before with the UFO thing, I mean, are they, it's hard to, a lot of people will see them and maybe they just assume they're family units of these creatures. But to your knowledge, it's just this one solitary Bigfoot that lives close to your home.
To my knowledge, yes, it's just the one.
Wow.
Does that mean there are others that I haven't seen? There could be. I was in the woods the other day, and I forgot to mention this to you. I came across a tree that I have no idea what he did to this tree. The best way to describe it is that it looks like he tried to pull it up out of the ground. Excuse me. I have to let everyone in.
Okay.
Get in here. Come on, now.
It sounds like our house. My problem is with my dogs, half of them want to go out, half of them want to come in. So I'm up and down, up and down, up and down all day in my office. They lay in here with me. Are yours like that, in and out, in and out? Yes.
I was off today, and the miniature schnauzer that was my mom's dog was out 4 times the first hour.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
And we're having a conversation about in and out. Because I was like, this is not happening. You're not doing this today. Yeah, we did it.
Oh, man. So regarding the old man, now so is it just one neighbor that knows about him, or do all of you guys?
No, they all do. They all do.
And
we all know about him, and it's not just confined to us. Where I go, people say different things. I've had other people who live on this road. The road from beginning to end is about 6 miles. It twists and turns through the woods, doubles back on itself, and then goes back out to the main highway. Other people who live on the road know about him too. That's how I find out different things that he does.
Okay.
This spring, at the start of trout season, he scared the fishermen. He went down to the river and decided to go skinny dipping or fishing, possibly both. They saw him in the middle of the day, and he scared the daylights out of them.
I'll bet.
About a half a mile away, next to the river, is a train track. He has been known to race the train.
Oh, cool.
He has scared hunters. There's one area that if he makes it over, he stands at the top over the major highway that's nearby. He stands at the top of the hill in a clearing. He's been seen there by more than one long-haul driver. A couple weeks ago, he was seen by the local police chief on a hill not too far from here. So it's not just us that know he's there. It's a lot of people that know he's around. He gets reported to the police. He's been reported to the state police. Different people say that they've seen him. He's not just here. But that area where when I went for a hike one day a couple weeks ago when it was a nice day, and it looked like he picked this tree up and started to pull it out by the roots. There was a strong, strong, strong smell of urine right in that area, and I have no doubt it was him. I have no doubt he was watching me there, too.
Oh, wow.
I could feel him watching. I just didn't see him. He is not going to bother me. He likes me. My husband claims he has an affection for me. I can tell his moods. Like, I know when something's bothering him. I know if he's in a good mood. He has left flowers. He left me flowers. The last time he left me flowers was August or September. Root ball attached. I come home and the flowers are laying on the back step.
Oh, my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no other explanation for any of this. What's funny is a lot of people deal with ridicule, and namely from their families and neighbors, but you guys are all on the same wavelength on this thing. Everybody's seen him, everybody's aware, or everybody's experienced some evidence of him. So it must be just an interesting topic of conversation to be around people who are in proximity with a Bigfoot, and they can just talk about it all the time. I mean, does that ever strike you as a pretty cool place to be?
I've grown into it. At first, I kept thinking I was losing my mind, and I'm dreaming having this conversation.
Okay.
And I still do get the ridicule. I get the ridicule from friends. A few of my friends who have heard me talk about him believe me. 2 of my sisters believe me. The other 2 don't.
Have you ever told them, come to my neighborhood? Everybody here will tell you about it. Or are they, do your neighbors talk about him just freely?
Well, amongst ourselves.
Okay.
When we bought this house, it has 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and we thought, oh, cool, we're buying a place in the woods where people can come stay, and, like they can come spend the weekends and blah, blah, blah. That does not happen. People come once, usually don't return. People don't like it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Their words are too remote. We're 2 miles from the main road, please. It's not that remote.
My mother-in-law used to say that. We would go pick her up and bring her to stay with us for a few days. And I remember several times, I have a long driveway too. My mother-in-law would say, I just don't know how you live back here. And I'm like, oh, I love it back here. There's no noise, no lights. We don't have one of the street lights or anything. It's like outside right now, it's as pitch black dark as it can be.
Well, we don't have lights back here either. Everybody wonders how we did that. When we moved in, because of my background in insurance, I don't believe in porch lights. Aside from the Christmas lights that are on like now, there's no porch lights out there. You walk up to this place at night, it's completely dark. And even my neighbors who live around here don't know how we do that. Well, we do that because basically we're a quarter mile back this driveway. I have a porch light on. It's like an invitation to a see. Here's the door, and I have it lit for you. But the neighbors that are down by the road, yeah, they have lights that are on constantly. So, and it was actually like 2 or 3 Christmases we were here before I was allowed by old man to have Christmas lights up. He lets me do it now. He doesn't unplug them anymore.
That is so amazing that he just doesn't like the lights. Now that he knows you better.
He didn't like them.
Yeah, now that he knows you better, you're able to enjoy your Christmas lights.
Mhm. And it's within, I'm going to say, well, it depends on what I'm doing. If I go out to mow the lawn, probably about 10 or 15 minutes after I'm done mowing the lawn, I get a wood knock. If I'm just out in the yard, not mowing the lawn, for like 10 or 15 minutes I'm outside, I get the wood knock. He wood knocked me the other day, but he sounded more distant than usual. It was further away, and it came from a different direction. So how he even knew I was outside is beyond me. But his greeting for me is a wood knock. If my husband's out in the yard doing something, he whistles. He whistles back. My husband whistles back to him. I will not answer him. I will not wood knock him. I will not answer him.
Why is
except
that?
I talk to him. It just scares me. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the wrong thing. Because believe me, if he wanted in this house, he could get in this house.
Right.
He doesn't come in. It wouldn't. He could get in.
But your husband has no issue with it. He'll just whistle back at him, huh?
Yeah, he just whistles back at him.
It's like he could be giving him like a verbal flip of the bird, but he just whistles anyway.
Yeah, he just does it anyway. He just answers him.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. When's the last time you thought about this, or what am I trying to say? What's the last evidence you've seen recently?
One morning last Friday when I was leaving, every other Friday I do a 36-hour weekend. So I only have to work one day during the following week. And I was leaving last Friday morning, and I guess he was not expecting me to leave. I don't know how close he was, but I heard him growl. And I said back to him, "That's nice, growl at me."
Oh.
One of the people who feed you. And I got in my car and left.
So sometimes he makes you a little nervous then.
He makes me nervous a lot. You know, people are like, well, he knows you and you know him. I'm not sure if he is an alien. I am not sure if he is a wild animal. He has never been unpredictable, but that couldn't become unpredictable.
Right.
But on the other hand, when my husband's gone away on business, there's a comfort knowing I do not believe for a minute that he would let anyone near this house. He will not mess with me and the dogs, and he will not mess with my husband. But I don't know that you would be entirely safe trying to come back this driveway. Because people who have come here, a lot of people, you know, like I said, we have property here. You know, deer season, I thought we'd have 1 or 2 people staying over to hunt our woods. That doesn't happen. They came once, they never came back.
Right.
I don't like it. I'm not comfortable. I get a strange feeling. When I get a feeling, I don't. I have no doubt it's him. And I'm not going to mention it to everybody and say, oh, yeah, that's our Bigfoot. I don't care to be committed.
Yeah.
Go ahead. A couple months ago when there was the bust at the house at the bottom of my driveway, And I pulled down the driveway, and I referenced this in the one story I wrote. The state trooper walks over to the car and looks at me and says, "Is your child throwing rocks at my car?" "No, I think he's made our Bigfoot angry. He just wants to pelt your vehicle with rocks so you leave. He makes other people uneasy." Now, for some reason, he doesn't. He makes me uneasy, but not so much that I wouldn't live here. I think he doesn't scare me when I hike the woods, and I hike the woods a lot. Except one time I got too close to his home, and he let me know that was not acceptable.
Okay.
So I don't hike that deep into the woods anymore.
So what kind of reaction did you get on that day?
A series of rapid tree knocks and a scream.
It's a pretty loud scream, I guess. He's wanting to get your attention, I guess.
He wanted to get my attention, and when people say they feel it vibrate in their chest, it does vibrate in your chest. And I real quickly got away from where I was and came back home. But it's like a mutual respect thing. He doesn't venture inside my fence line, and I'm not going to go that close to his house.
How often are you, like you said, you gave him some carrots recently. Are you continually gifting? I guess that's the word people use. Are you leaving out food for him on a regular basis?
Not on a really regular basis, and I tend to do it more in the fall and winter because I believe he eats mostly vegetarian. But it's not like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday I leave him things. If I'm cleaning out the fridge or notice something in the fridge that's been in there for longer than a week, then I'll take it and throw it over the fence. There was one point this summer I bought him a watermelon, and that became every couple weeks I bought him a watermelon. And he got a little ticked at me when I didn't buy him any more watermelon because they stopped selling them. But it was funny, with the first one that I bought him, he didn't know what to do with it. He left it alone. So I went out and broke it, and he didn't eat it until I broke it.
Oh.
But the second one I left him, I didn't have to break.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, I just walked over, picked it up to about my shoulder height, threw it on the ground, and turned around and came back in the house. And the next day it was gone.
Is there ever anything that you leave out that's there the next day, or does he take everything?
He doesn't like bread.
He doesn't like bread.
He doesn't like bread.
Oh, my God.
He'll eat it, but he won't take it.
Oh, that's fascinating. Your UFO experiences and your dad's experience and the people that you know was in another location. Do you experience the UFO stuff in correlation with this Bigfoot? I mean, do you guys have things going on in the sky around your home now?
Frequently, yes.
Okay. What about...
But they don't come
Go ahead.
As close to the ground as they did back then.
You know, I've heard people talk about smaller lights in the woods. Have you ever witnessed any of that? Like, I heard a guy talking the other day about this blue light that was just kind of hovering in the woods. He said it was about 1 foot long and maybe 1 inch cylinder, and it was just moving through the woods. Do you ever see anything like that?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
As a matter of fact, 2 or 3 times.
Oh, tell us about that.
When the first time it happened, my husband and I were coming home from dinner, and we were coming up the hill that leads back the driveway. There were 2 lights in the woods. They weren't a car. They weren't close enough to be a vehicle headlights. They were hovering, we guessed, at the time when we were talking about it, 10 to 12 feet off the ground. And there was no way into the woods except back our driveway. There used to be a hunting camp up behind us to the right, as you face our property, but the person who owned that hunting camp was a doctor from Erie, and he's since passed away, and the camp is now not occupied. The driveway is overgrown. But even then, to access that driveway, you would have to use our driveway. And the little barrier, we've let it grow up since there's no one going back there. We used to keep it mowed for them, but no one's going there, so we don't mow it. So it's back behind that without absolutely any way to get into the woods unless you came up our driveway and we would know you were there. Through the back, like you hike the woods, they go all the way to the river, and there's a hill, so there's no coming in from there. There's a power line right of way that's probably 3/4 of a mile away. You're not coming in through there. It's surrounded by woods. It's just a power line right of way that power lines go to New York City, I believe. That's what I was told. So there's no way in. Everyone says, well, how did maybe they got in another way. There's no way to get into the woods unless you come back our driveway. And it's not possible. These lights were too far apart to be a car, too close together to be anything else. They weren't a quad. They were hovering 10 to 12 feet off the ground. The second time I was coming home from work, it was in January, a year or so ago. I came back the driveway, and there were two lights that were closer together, but they were still too far apart to be a car. There was no noise either time. Absolutely no noise. It's not like you're hearing any type of engine. You're not. There was, trying to remember when it was, maybe 2 weeks ago, we went out for date night. We were coming up the driveway, and probably 50 feet from our back door, there were lights in the woods. This time, there were two side by side, and one up like it formed a triangle. And where they were was at the top of they were on the side of a ridge, the side of a hill. But the lights were side by side. They weren't tilted like they would be, or should have been if it was a vehicle driving around the hill. And even so, I looked at my husband and said, is that a quad? He said, I don't think so. But the only thing that could have been there would have been a quad.
No way for a larger vehicle to get in there.
No, it's too wooded.
Yeah.
And especially now, it's like the leaves are off the trees. The trees are all over the wood floor, or, the ground, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know that a vehicle could maneuver and not slide down the hill into the creek that runs along the bottom. But there was no sound because we both got out of the car and kind of looked at each other like, I'm not hearing anything. Are you hearing something I'm not hearing? And both kind of looked at each other and then came into the house.
I don't expect you to know this, but do you suspect this is connected with the Bigfoot activity?
I'm not sure. I guess it could be. It wouldn't surprise me with as frequently as Bigfoot is sighted in this area, and not just the old man. I have a friend whose farm is, let's see, how far is it on his farm? Say it's probably a good 6 miles away, and there's more Bigfoot over there. Or is it the same one? Where he was sighted by the police chief is a good 5 miles away. Is that him, or is it a different one?
Right.
Because I understand they have a pretty good range. So if the lights are associated, it wouldn't surprise. But I know I have a friend, his name is John, has a farm that's about 6 miles away. He's constantly seeing Bigfoot, more than one. He sees lights, odd lights in his field. I spoke with a customer when I worked in retail. I remarked when I saw her address one time that I had heard of a Bigfoot sighting there, and she was talking about Bigfoot and his vocal range and what he does to her garbage cans and lights that she sees in her woods, and she thinks they're all related.
Yeah, I would, if that was going on here, I would tell you yes. It has how, I don't know, but it has to be related.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, because why else would they be back there, especially at night? I mean, I've come home when I worked different jobs, and I came home and I saw something in the woods. It was some sort of vehicle. It might have been a quad, but again, how could a quad get back there? And it was moving around, and I could see it moving around. It was on the ground. It was not hovering. It was on the ground. It was some sort of vehicle, but not a quad.
Was it making any noise?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
Because the way it's all structured around here, if there's something in the woods, I'm going to hear it. When the people used the camp that's up behind where we live, I would know they were here. Even if I was in the house, I would hear something. I would hear them come up the driveway. I would hear them go up their driveway. They would set the dog off. Yeah. In these cases, nothing sets the dog off, except when the old man comes into the backyard. Archie does not like that. I should have taken a picture of those tricks.
Wonder if he's scared of him.
Not happy.
Is Archie a big boy?
Yeah, he's a big boy.
I wonder what the old man thinks about Archie.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
This is also interesting because I live in a place similar to yours, but we don't have anybody around. And I do, what's funny is people in the audience, some of them would think I'm crazy, but I do night hikes around here. I mean, we've got several miles of roads, dirt roads, logging roads. So I'll walk back there at night, and of course with a flashlight, and I never think about anything. I don't think about Bigfoot. I just like to walk at night sometimes. But I would love to see something, just something here. But I never see anything. I never see lights. I never see tracks. I never hear sounds. Every once in a while I hear a sound. Like I heard one today that I thought was really odd. I don't know what it was. Probably a cow or something way off. It must be so exciting when those lights show up. And I'm just speaking from my point of view, but do you get excited when you see that stuff, or does it worry you?
No, it doesn't worry me. I guess at first I did get excited about it, but now it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, more like, so what? Right, what, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that. Okay, so we've got the Bigfoot, we've got the lights, and you think you're pretty sure there's fairly regular UFO activity, but you also have something else, and we've got about 5 or 10 minutes left here, I think. Something that I would consider spiritual or paranormal. Do you think you could do that in 5 or 10 minutes?
Sure.
All right. Why don't you just...
I never told you how all that started, did I?
No, I don't know the story, so just dive right in. Because I'm loving this. I'm loving this talk.
It was Halloween of 2018. We were just going about our days, doing our thing. Believe it or not, my husband is the one who wants the Christmas tree kept up all year. It is not me, honest God, it is not me, it is him. So in the corner of our master suite, we have a tree we call the all-season tree. He may want it up all year, but he's not the one who decorates it.
Right.
I am.
Okay.
I have all of my seasonal decorations right now with the Christmas tree. I have all of my seasonal decorations stored in our master closet. Everything is good. Last Halloween, I decorated the tree. I will never again decorate the tree for Halloween. Never again will I do that. Two of the things that I put on it were 2 Grim Reapers that I had got at the local Halloween store, just like Grim Reaper dolls. Hung them on the tree. A couple days later, I'm looking around for them. I cannot find these things. Cannot find them anywhere. I have no idea where they are. So I assumed that Archie took them off the tree and put them somewhere in the house. So I go around the house. I look through the living room, under the furniture, on the furniture, everywhere he can go. There's no Grim Reapers. I go into the family room. I'm looking in the family room, all around, under the furniture, on the furniture. There's nothing. I cannot find them anywhere in the house. I called my husband. I said, "Did you take them off the tree?" He said, "No, why would I do that?" I don't know, but they're missing. So where the tree is in our bedroom is right next to my part of the master closet that you access through a door. I went over to the door. I have a mirror on the door, and I started to open it, and I saw the 2 Grim Reapers. They had been moved to the back of the tree at the very top. Now, this tree is an 8-foot tall pencil tree. I can't reach the top. I'm 5 foot nothing. My heart sank. My immediate reaction was I grabbed the 2 Grim Reapers off the tree, took them outside, and burned them. I was terrified. Immediately had a feeling of dread. Was not sure what happened. A couple days later, different things are happening. I came home from grocery shopping. I swore that I had put the groceries down on the washer and dryer because when you come into the house, you come in through the garage into the laundry room. I swore that I had put the groceries down on the washer and dryer, came back, all of the grocery bags were in the kitchen. Would do things like take a drink into my bedroom, not be able to find the drink, would come out and find it sitting in the sink. One night I was laying on the bed watching television. He was out of town on business. It sounded like a picture slid off the wall onto the floor. Walked through the house, there was nothing. It was just different things like that continually going on, things getting moved, lights getting turned on and off, increasing in spookiness and in the feeling of malevolence. It got to the feeling that I got so tired of the weird things that were happening here, I didn't want to be here by myself. I finally said something to my husband about it, and he said, "I wasn't going to say this to you because I didn't want you to think I was going insane, but the same things
Oh, wow.
So the entity, whatever it was playing us off, like, not off against each other is what I almost said, but playing with us individually. But when we were together at home, nothing would happen. So we talked about it, and we decided to go to our church, which is a non-denominational church, to the minister who I know so much better than my husband knows him. And he looked at me and he said, well, this is what you do. And he told me to go home and say to the Spirit, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, by whose blood I am made clean. Leave this house. He said, walk from room to room, say that a couple times, and that should take care of it. So I did. I came home, I said that, walked from room to room with my husband. We both did it together. We had maybe 1 or 2 days of peace and quiet when everything started back up again, but was increasingly worse. And it continued to get worse. Glasses were getting thrown off the counters. They were breaking. Pictures were coming off the walls. Some were with glass in the frames. They were breaking, like something was hostile. So I went back to my minister. My minister said, I don't know what to tell you. Go to the Catholic Church. This is their field.
Wow.
So in the work that I used to do when we had our family business, our insurance agency, and the work that I used to do, I did a lot of work with the local diocese. So I contacted a lady I knew at the local diocese. She reminded me that a friend of mine, a priest that she had introduced me to, Father Tom, was really the local expert on this. So rather than call Father Tom, I went to see him at the church he served. I told him what was going on, and he came home with me. He did an exorcism on the house. It took 3 nights.
Oh, wow.
The first night, the next day, the behavior was even worse. Like, I have a pie closet in my living room, if you know what that is. It's like an Amish term for a tall standing chest where you display collectibles. I came home and it was in the middle of the living room floor, and everything that was in it was shattered.
Oh, my gosh.
There were different things. There was a statue that my grandmother had given us as a wedding present that was sitting on top of our dresser. I came home and fortunately it was not broken, sitting in the middle of my bed. Yeah, so there were different things like that happening. He was having his own things, like when he would come home. I think it was basing its actions on our fears, what scared us the most. And one of the things that scares him the most is the feeling that he is being haunted by my first husband. Spirit was doing things like moving his wallet around and moving things around in his closet. So I called Father Tom, told him what was happening. He came back the second night, did another exorcism on the house, told me to scatter my mother's ashes because at that point my mother had died in April of 2018 and her ashes were sitting in the living room. And Father Tom said, get those out of the house. On the outside chances she doesn't want to be here. I'm like, my mother would never do this to me. He's like, get them out of the house. Scatter them. You made a promise about scattering those ashes, didn't you? Yes. Said yes. He said, then do it and hold up to your promise. So that night, my husband and I, that next day, we went out, scattered the ashes, and according to her wishes and our promise to her. We got home. Some things were moved. It was a little more subdued. It wasn't as hostile as it had been when we started the exorcism, but some things were moved around. I called Father Tom again, told him things were moved around. He came in the third night, did another exorcism, and it worked. But I will tell you, until this day, we have a bottle of holy water on our kitchen table. I just tapped it against the phone.
That is fascinating. Were you there while he was performing the exorcism?
Yeah.
So you saw all the things he did and said and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is that is it like in the movies?
Not as dramatic.
Yeah.
But they say a lot in Latin, and then they pray a lot. And we were supposed to back it up and say, by the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, by whose blood we are made clean, we rebuke you.
Right.
Leave our home.
Okay.
And that's what, the first night we did that, or I did that, when our minister told me what to do, I did that. I said, I am a disciple of my Lord Jesus Christ. By his blood I am made clean. I rebuke you, leave my house. Father Tom said we should have done it together.
Okay.
That it was both of us that should have said it. But even still, when both of us did say it, the night of the first exorcism, it didn't work.
Lynn, you have had an eventful life with these things. It's unbelievable. And that's exactly why I begged you to do this. And I'm so glad you decided to do it. I'm sitting here listening to your exorcism story, and I'm wondering if it's connected, but you suspect that you know what the entity was, and so that's probably a moot conversation, but wow.
Well, I don't know what the entity was. It was never confirmed. It was not my mother. My mother would never have behaved that way, even though she would have joked with me about, well, if you don't scatter my ashes the way you promised, I'm going to haunt you until the day you die. She would have said that.
Yeah.
I don't think she would have gone to the length that this entity went to. Dave said more than once he thought it was my first husband, but he would not have done that either.
Yeah.
You know, I know there are times when my first husband has been around. I know the times he's been here. He hasn't been here lately, but I know the times he's been here, and he wouldn't have done that. And I don't believe under any circumstances that he would have malicious intent against my current husband.
Right.
He would have wanted me, like I was 23 when he died, he would have wanted me to go on and marry and have a family and do all those things.
Sure.
So he wouldn't have had a malicious intent. So,
but
no, I was never confirmed. No, I still get nervous about it. But have we had anything happen here? No. But it was such a completely horrifying and frightening experience that, yes, more than a year later, I still have worry and concern over it.
Much more scary than a Bigfoot encounter, or actually knowing you have a Bigfoot living in the hills behind your house.
He doesn't worry me.
Yeah.
I know if he wanted in, he could get in. He doesn't come in. He respects our property. Like he requests that we respect his. Like, I don't know if request is the same thing, but he's going to let me know if I venture too close.
Yeah, it's so interesting, but it's something like an entity, a ghost, or however you want to describe it in your home. Like Bigfoot, UFOs, you know, we talked about this, or I have before, how excited I would be. But if I had something going on in my house, I'm thinking that thing is hovering around watching me. But I don't think Bigfoot's watching me while I'm in my house. Does that make sense? So I can see how I can see how creepy that would feel.
That's exactly how I felt. That's how we both felt.
Right.
Even when we were here together before we mentioned it to one another, we both felt like it was hovering around watching it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't suspect old man can see in the house. Is he watching me when I'm outside? Yes. Am I thankful for that sometimes? Yes. Am I thankful that he's watching the house when I'm pulling one of my 36-hour weekends? Yes. Especially on those weekends when my husband's not here. Has he done anything to the house sitter or pet sitter? No. Although I've told them both he's here.
That's just awesome. You know, thanks for doing this. I think we're at an hour and 20 minutes now. I'm going to kind of wind this up and just say that, you know, the whole point of me wanting to do interviews was to talk to interesting people. And I don't know how I'm ever going to outdo these stories. I might do interviews for, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be popular or not, or if people are going to enjoy it. I don't know how I'm going to top this. So it's been fascinating, and I'd love to keep in touch with you. You've got my email address. If something strange happens, I hope you'll get in contact with us, because I'm sure the audience would love to hear more of this, especially, you know, this is a cryptid channel about the cryptid Bigfoot kind of stuff. And the UFO connection is fascinating. Your father must have been a very interesting man to be around. If there's anything you want to say as we close out, Lynn, it's the floor is yours, ma'am.
No, not really. Thank you for asking me to do this. I'm going to go through some of my pictures if you are interested in them, and I'll send them to you. I'll email you some of the different things that I have found in the woods behind the house that I attribute to the old man.
Oh, yeah, that would be
some
great.
Some of them are pretty interesting. They're pretty interesting.
Yeah. I would love that. And I don't do much, visual, or I did an audio thing in the last interview, but it was so good. But yeah, I'd love to take a look at that stuff. And that's cool. You said a tribute to the old man, because I think you and he have a kinship that's probably not easy to explain, but I think it's there.
Yeah, I know my husband would agree with you. He says, and he sees it.
Oh, I can tell. Oh, I can tell just by the way you talk. And anyway, I hope the nice encounters and things like that continue. And again, let us know if something else comes up. So thanks again, Lynn. I'm going to wind up this video. Thank you all for clicking on the video and listening this far. It's been a long video, and we'll see you on the next one.